You know, the name Greenland probably brings to mind these images of rolling hills and lush green fields. But the reality? It's a vast, beautiful expanse of ice. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the story behind that name and how, in a really strange twist of fate, it's actually accidentally starting to come true.
So this is the central paradox, right? How does a place that's so defined by its massive ice sheet get a name that suggests the complete opposite? Well, the answer isn't in its geography. It's in its history. And you could say it's a pretty brilliant marketing campaign from more than 1,000 years ago.
Okay, first, let's just get the facts straight. About 80% of Greenland is covered by a gigantic ice sheet. Only about 1% of its land is what we'd call arable, suitable for farming, and that's mostly down in the milder south. The landscape is dominated by Arctic tundra, which is this cold, treeless region. It's absolutely a stark and beautiful place, but green isn't exactly the first word that jumps to mind.
So, to really understand the name, we have to go back in time. Way back. To the Viking Age and the story of one very, very persuasive Norse explorer.
Let's meet our main character, Erik the Red. So around 982 AD, he gets exiled from Iceland for manslaughter of all things. Instead of just sitting around, he sails west and starts exploring the coasts of this huge unknown land. After 3 years, he comes back to Iceland not just with stories, but with a plan. By 985, he's leading a fleet of 25 ships to establish the very first successful European settlement there. And here's the kicker. This quote, which comes from the old Icelandic sagas, it just reveals Erik's whole strategy. He deliberately chose the name Greenland because he knew he had to convince people to leave Iceland and come with him. Think about it. Iceland sounds cold and harsh. Greenland, on the other hand, it sounds promising, full of opportunity. It was pure marketing genius.
And here's a quick little fact check for you. While Erik the Red gets all the credit, he wasn't actually the first European to see Greenland. The sagas mention a Norseman named Gunnbjorn Olfsson, who was blown off course and spotted the land almost a century earlier. But, and this is the important part, Erik was the first to establish a permanent settlement, and that's why his name is forever tied to the island.
So Erik's marketing campaign worked. Settlers came, they built farms, and they created a whole new society on the very edge of the known world. But their 500-year experiment, well, it has a mysterious and pretty tragic ending. Let's take a look at what happened.
For centuries, the North Colony really thrived. The population grew to as many as 5,000 people living in 2 main settlements. They farmed sheep, goats, and cattle down in the south and sent hunting parties way up north to Disco Bay for valuable stuff like seals and walrus ivory. They managed to survive and even prosper for almost half a millennium.
So what changed? In a word, the climate. Starting in the 14th century, a period of global cooling that we now call the Little Ice Age began. For the Norse Greenlanders, this was absolutely catastrophic. Growing seasons got shorter, and all the increasing sea ice cut them off from their trading partners back in Iceland and Norway.
And just like that, they were gone. By the time other Europeans re-established contact, the Norse settlements were just abandoned. The cooling climate had simply made survival impossible, and it ultimately wiped out the entire colony. All that was left were ruins and a stark reminder of how vulnerable a society can be to big changes in the environment.
Okay, but here's where the story takes its most ironic turn. While a cooling climate doomed the first European settlers, today a rapidly warming climate is transforming the island in a way that nobody could have predicted. Erik the Red's old marketing name is becoming a literal reality.
Let's just look at the data. A scientific analysis of the last 3 decades shows a really staggering loss of ice cover. Over 28,000 square kilometers have melted away. That's a massive area of new land that's been exposed.
And what's happening on that newly exposed land? Well, in that exact same period, the total area covered by vegetation has more than doubled. That's a 111% increase. The island is literally getting greener.
The change for wetlands is even more dramatic. Their coverage has nearly quadrupled, expanding by 380%. This shows the landscape isn't just changing a little bit, it's fundamentally shifting, and it's happening really, really fast. So what's the engine behind all this transformation? Well, it's not just a simple rise in the average temperature. The key factor seems to be the number of days each year that get above 6 degrees Celsius. That's about 43 degrees Fahrenheit. That appears to be the critical threshold that just kicks plant growth into high gear. This greening of Greenland isn't just about more plants showing up.
It's kicking off this cascade of changes across the entire Arctic ecosystem. It's creating a world in transition, and we really don't know what all the consequences will be.
What scientists are projecting is this massive northward shift in vegetation. Boreal forests could start expanding into what is now tundra, and the tundra, in turn, could move into what are now polar deserts. As new species migrate north, the delicate ecosystems that exist today could just completely break apart.
And what's more, this process can actually accelerate itself through what are called feedback loops. For example, darker ground from all the new vegetation absorbs more sunlight than white ice does, which causes more warming. Thawing permafrost releases trapped greenhouse gases like methane, which causes, you guessed it, even more warming. It's a cycle that once it really gets going is very hard to stop.
So we've seen how climate shaped Greenland's past, and now we're seeing how it's radically reshaping its present. It's bringing the island's entire story full circle in this deeply ironic way.
The contrast is just stark. During the Little Ice Age, a cooling climate brought an end to the Norse colony. Today, global warming is driving a rapid greening of that very same landscape. It's such a powerful illustration of climate's defining role in Greenland's history, both then and now.
It really all comes down to this. Erik the Red's promotional name, that clever little bit of marketing from over 1,000 years ago, is unintentionally becoming a physical reality. The ultimate irony here is that this whole transformation is happening because of global climate change.
And all of this leaves us with a final and pretty critical question. Because this story isn't over. As this ancient icy landscape continues to turn green, it's going to unlock new opportunities, for sure, but also a host of new ecological and even geopolitical challenges. What will this new, greener Greenland actually look like? And what is it going to mean for the rest of the world?